Welcome back. So Chief Justice Raymond Zondo will go into retirement at the end of August after serving on the bench for 27 years. He will hand down his final judgment at the Constitutional Court on Wednesday, on the 21st of August, in a special ceremonial sitting. Zondo's nearly 3 decades-long career saw him serve as a Judge President of the Labour Appeals Court as well as a Justice of the Constitutional Court for over 10 years. While working as the Deputy Chief Justice in 2018, he was appointed the chairperson of the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, which received widespread criticism for its cost and lack of results where prosecutions is concerned. Let's now look at Zondo's legacy as he winds up. He's a 10-year former Constitutional Court Judge, Johann Kriegler, and Judges Matter Coordinator Alison Tilley are joining us for this conversation this morning. Thank you both so much for making time for us this morning. Judge Kriegler, let me start off with you. What goes into the work of becoming a Chief Justice who is at the helm of one arm of the state, because we have the legislature, and then we have the executive, and then we have the judiciary?
Well, the most important requirement is experience. The Chief Justice must know the game through and through, preferably from the trial court level to the appellate court level, possibly then to the Constitutional Court. It's a judge who knows the business of judging is to be the Chief Justice. Primary requirement, experience. Secondary requirement, wisdom. Having acquired through the years of experience, wisdom, knowing the limitations of the job, knowing the challenges of the job, knowing how to deal with them in all kinds of circumstances. Thirdly, management capacity, how to run a very, very complex and nowadays an extensive undertaking. The judiciary is now run separately, own budget. It's a very, very demanding job. And then, of course, lastly, the Chief Justice has to be a judge, has to sit in cases, has to preside in cases, has to determine cases, write judgments that are an example to all other judges in the country.
Yeah, and on those 4 criteria, Judge Kriegler, that you've listed, how would you score Justice Zondo, especially during his tenure as the Chief Justice of the country? A rather short tenure compared to some of his predecessors, except for Sandile Ngobo. But it was still a short tenure. But how would you say he scored when it comes to those criteria that you've just mentioned?
I think he meets each one of them. It's a very short spell he had, particularly as he was tied down, I was about to say bogged down, in the Commission of Inquiry for so long that went into his period of office. I think Chief Justice gets full marks on certainly his experience, his knowledge, his handling of people. I think the administration of the Chief Justiceship was a little bit behind schedule during the latter period through no fault of the Chief Justice.
Okay. Alison, do you agree with that criteria that Judge Kriegler has just spelled out, and also his performance? This is now of Justice Zondo during his tenure as the Chief Justice of the country.
Yes, I would agree with those criteria. I think that really the Chief Justice had a very short time in office, and I think that that's really limited in some ways his ability to undertake any wide-ranging reforms. But I certainly think we've been very lucky in having him, and I think the court will certainly miss his gravitas and his sense of how important the independence of the judiciary is, which is, of course, I think as Chief Justice, one of the things that he brought was a very strong sense of independence and acting without fear or favor.
Yeah. When we look at, for instance, one of his priorities that he outlined during his interviews, including the judicial governance reform, for the judicial administration. He leaves with that still hanging. So Justice Mogoeng has not been able to complete that particular part or achieve the goals that are within this reform. He has also not been able to do it. As he looks back at his tenure, how do you think he interprets his ability to try and influence the executive to say that this is actually the route that the judiciary should be taking?
Whom is that?
Okay, let's start off with Alison, and then I'll come to you, Judge Kriegler.
Good.
I think the question of judicial governance is really, as you know, I think as we've seen since 2014, partly completed, and he certainly leaves frustratingly with that, not further down the road. And I think that that's one of the things that incoming Chief Justice Meyer has indicated that she is particularly interested in resolving and making sure that what we see as a judiciary-led administration. I think some of the frustrations are around things like budgets, the establishment, how many judges there are. And I think there's a sense amongst certainly judges and magistrates that things might be better if there was more independence in the sense of institutional independence. So not independence in judgments. I mean, I think that's a given, but there should be more control by judges over how the system runs. And I think that's the thing he's leaving undone.
Yeah, and Judge Kriegler, when I spoke to the Judge President of the Gauteng High Court Division, Dustin Mlambo, he mentioned this also as partly as a frustration, especially when it comes to filling the vacancies within the judiciary. I just quickly want you to listen to what he had to say at the time during that interview, and I'd love to hear your response to it and whether a case has been set out for judicial independence when it comes to the administration of the judiciary.
You have a judiciary that is capacitated to deal with a certain workload. The workload we are dealing with, we are not capacitated to deal with. We don't have the judicial post to deal with the workload that's here. So we can take that blame. It's not the first time we've said our workload is increasing, right? We've been saying we need the creation of more judicial posts. We don't have them. And frankly speaking, I think it may be a blessing in disguise that this crisis is here, because the powers that be will hear and will understand what the situation is, because there's no meaningful access to justice. You can't blame the judiciary for this. We can deal with whatever we can deal with. We're not robots, we're humans. We can deal with as much, not more.
So are you saying that the executive should take blame for this?
Well, if you want to play the blame game, it's up to you. I'm not going to point fingers at anyone. I'm just saying, we engage as one arm of government with the other arms of government, and we know where the purse strings are, So if we say we need more judicial posts, we need more judicial posts because we can see what's happening.
And Judge Kriegler, as Judge Dustin Mlambo says that listen, these are issues that have been raised before with the executive, and we know where the purse strings lie.
Let's be completely frank about this. Our system is based on tension between the three pillars of state. Active, cooperative, but tension. We are not the same source of state power. We are there to watch one another. And there will always be tension between the judiciary and the executive. It will largely be about resources. It is healthy that it is there. It is unhealthy when the executive is not listening adequately to the judiciary. And that is not only on the part of the executive a fault, on the part of the judiciary a fault. The dialogue should be there. It was not at its best for some time. It has to be picked up again. It is unnecessary for judges to battle because there aren't enough people to man the benches and not enough backup staff to assist them. That is a question that should be dealt with by the new Chief Justice. I have no doubt that she is fully aware of it. She doesn't need us to tell her that, and she will be addressing it.
Yeah, but then what? How should we understand the powers of the Chief Justice if the Chief Justice is not able to achieve some of the goals, for instance, that speak to what a transformed judiciary looks like, and whether Chief Justice Meyer then comes in, she comes in beset by the same problems that her predecessors have also faced. Judge Kriegler, I'll start off with you, and then I'll go to Alison.
You know, when I said at the outset, I identified the criteria, the qualities you need in a Chief Justice. There was one important one that I overlooked and that is clearly relevant here. The Chief Justice must have a presence, must represent to the executive and to the people of South Africa an image of the judiciary which is all that we require of it: wise, independent, reliable, honest, and concerned about the people. The Chief Justice will have to establish afresh that office of reliability, of stature, of a little bit of grandness in order to influence the political process.
Yeah. Alison, your reflection on that?
Well, I think we have, there certainly are very serious concerns. I think at the moment you're looking at a court date in Gauteng in 2029. We're looking at pro bono judges coming in to support the courts, not only in Gauteng, the Western Cape, because there simply aren't enough judges available. I think that the idea of a judiciary-led administration is that it would be able to shake loose more resources in order to resource the courts better. And I think that's one of the reasons that the incoming Chief Justice is interested in and focused on the issue. We know that the OCJ had a 13% budget cut this year. So we're not looking at a situation in which these concerns are being remedied. And I think that's one of the things that the incoming Chief Justice has indicated is something she's going to treat as front and center.
Earlier on, our colleagues were running a poll. This is on the Weekend Report, asking our audience what they will remember Chief Justice Raymond Zondo for. And at 82%, it is the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. I'd love to hear both of yours reflection on how the Chief Justice, while he was Deputy Chief Justice of the country, was able to steer the Commission of Inquiry. But I want to also start it off here. When the President of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, was in front of the Chief Justice, something that we hadn't seen in a Commission of Inquiry, a sitting President being questioned and cross-examined as well. Let's just quickly take you back there, and I'd love to hear both of your reflection.
Alison, go ahead.
Within the context of the practices of the Deployment Committee, how it deals with matters, what would be the role of, I don't know whether it's a principle or what it is, but namely that there is only one center of power. It is the party. If that is still the position, I know at some stage there were issues about whether there are two centers of power, government and party, but it seems to me that it may well be that if that is the principle, that it would contemplate that the real decisions are taken within the party. So what would be the role of that principle within the context of the work of the Deployment Committee?
Well, Chair, Yes, the party is where power resides. Our democracy is such that it delineates political parties as the vehicles through which the masses of our people demonstrate their support through their votes for a party that then finally has representatives in parliament, in the cabinet, and so forth. So the party then plays a key role. But the party is just one of the actors in our democracy.
Well, Alison, your reflection on Justice Zondo as the chairperson of the commission, and also what you make of some people saying that when it came to the presentation by the president, that it almost seems that the Chief Justice was a bit soft. He handled him with kid gloves.
I think the Zondo Commission has been the highlight of the Chief Justice's career. But ironically, I think it's been as much a win for him as it's also been a frustration. Because I think he came away from the Commission of Inquiry, as perhaps chairs of commissions of inquiry do. And I'm looking at Justice Kriegler. The thing with them is that they gather a lot of information. There's a lot of discussion about what went wrong, what the reasons were, but you can't implement as the Chief Justice any of those recommendations. You hand that on. And I think that if there is unfinished business for the Chief Justice, and he's spoken about this a number of times, it's that the recommendations that he made have not been implemented. And I think that will remain a frustration for him, and I think for many of us, that there's so much there that really we haven't been able to implement or act on.
Yeah. Okay. Judge Kriegler, your reflection on that. Also, I'd like to pose this question to you, especially as a former judge, and that is, should a sitting judge really be sitting in a commission of inquiry, especially if you look at the case with Justice Zondo? Is here somebody was the Deputy Chief Justice of the country, would potentially become the Chief Justice of the country at a later stage, which of course happened. But some people reading that as if it was almost a reward to him by the president for how he's handled the State Capture Commission of Inquiry.
Oh, you're perfectly correct that it's uncomfortable for a judge to be the chair of a commission of inquiry, not only for the reasons that Alison mentioned so sharply, because you're frustrated that you can yourself do nothing about it, you have to depend upon others. But the fact is that a commission of inquiry, particularly such as the one into state capture, involves you in the political terrain. You get involved with political value judgments. You get involved in political debates where ordinarily judges should shrink from political debate and leave that to the executive and the legislature. We, in the Constitutional Court, actually about 20 years ago, expressed some pretty strong views on the risks when judges get involved in commissions of inquiry, precisely because of the embarrassment that it causes when you clash with politicians, when you have to engage in political issues and you get involved in political debate and you get involved in suspicion and comment and criticism on the basis that you're involved in a field of which you ought to know little and in which you ought to do nothing.
Yeah. Judge Kriegler, thank you so much for your time. Former Concord Judge there, Johann Kriegler, as well as a Judges Matter Coordinator, Alison Tilley. Still a lot of issues, of course, to cover with when it comes to the tenure of the former Chief Justice, well, soon-to-be former Chief Justice, including delays in judgments at the Constitutional Court. But I guess the other teams will be able to pick up on those.